welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about what the next Pokemon game I would like to see is. We're going to go over a little bit, maybe a couple different games, but mainly one game I would look forward to a lot. I'm not going to be talking about Scarlet and Violet DLC. That's its own game. That's its own time. I'm going to be talking about, what the next, I wouldn't consider it mainline, but what the next Pokemon game I would like to see is, and one that would make relatively sense, even though Nintendo probably wouldn't, but this is something I would like to see and would have liked to see for a very long time now, so let's get into it. As I'm sure you guys are aware, there's this little manga called Pokemon Adventures that's been going on since the series started. We have never, ever gotten a game about Pokemon Adventures. They hardly recognize this series as Pokemon anymore, and it really upsets me because Pokemon Adventures is filled to the brim with so much characterization, so much story, so much action. The Pokemon battles are just something completely different in this manga. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. Even if you don't like Pokemon, this is a really good manga. It's not just Pokemon, it's about the characters, it's about the people we meet, the towns we go through, the areas we go through. It characterizes so much more about the early Pokemon games, way more than the games brought to us. Which is why I think the next Pokemon game we get should be called Pokemon Adventures, and it should be strictly based off the manga. No game stuff, nothing. Now, let me get further into which part of the Pokemon Adventures series there is and which one I would like to see and everything, so let's get into that part. You can see we have been showing pictures. There's Pokemon Adventures for every mainline game, so Red, Blue, Gold, Silver, Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, even the remakes, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. We have remake manga as well, which I don't want to get into that part, but that's a different story. As you all know, the last remake game we got was Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I think. I didn't play them, so I don't remember the name exactly, but the last games we got were Gen 4 remakes. We just got Johto remakes, or not Johto, Kanto remakes with Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu a couple years ago. Now, if you're like me and you grew up with Pokemon in the early 2000s, you were around for Gen 4, which was Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. But mainly, my favorite Pokemon game also, Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I love these games to death. I love the Johto region. I love Gen 2. It's my favorite generation. I would absolutely love not only for a Johto game, because that would be next in line for the remakes, or whatever you want to call those. Johto should get another game, but make it super special. Now, most people would argue, oh yeah, but Legend Celebi would make more sense, and don't get me wrong, I would absolutely love a Legend Celebi, but we have never, ever gotten an Adventures game. We have never even gotten any coverage in the games about Pokemon Adventures. It is a strict manga-only thing, which is what I'm going to be talking about. I want the manga to be turned into a game. Now, if you've read the manga, you know what and why I want this. So I'm going to get into the specifics in the next section, but that's the general idea. Pokemon Adventures, specifically Gold and Silver, so we can get that Johto remake, but make it special. So let's get into the next section. Okay, so let's get started. Obviously, for the basics, the story, the art direction, the design, the characters, all from Pokemon Gold and Silver manga. Not the Heart Gold and Soul Silver manga, specifically Gold and Silver. Now, the story in the manga, it's hard to explain. It's not very different, but also extremely different at the same time. Now, everyone knows who Red and Blue are, right? There have been in multiple games. Red and Blue were in the Johto games, Gold, Silver, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Red and Blue were in Black and White 2. Red and Blue were in Pokemon Sun and Moon. They are probably the most popular characters, I would say, from the show. Or from the game, not the show. Here's the thing. In the manga, yes, Red and Blue are in the manga, but their characterization is done so much differently in the manga. And I love Red and Blue in the manga. And they actually get character. They're not just, oh, they're your past self kind of trope. Red and Blue get super cool personalities and everything. And though I would love to see a Pokemon adventure specifically of Red and Blue, because that's my favorite part of the manga is the very beginning, I think Gold and Silver would be good too, because as you've seen in the manga panels I have been showing, Gold meets Red on his journey. Gold runs into the previous generation's trainers. Now, here's something cool that Pokemon Adventures does. They pass down the torch to the next generation. They don't try to keep the characters and they don't make them work. They only have past characters show up if it makes sense, which is why I love the manga more than the show, because Ash being in every generation makes them change the narrative of the generation, because he's always in it. They have to make Ash in it. They have to make a story around it. In Adventures, they don't have to do that. They have complete free range. Red shows up in Gold and Silver to help Gold, or he's actually called Ethan. Ethan and Lyra are actually the names of the Gold and Silver protagonists, and they're not the only ones. Every protagonist you play as in the first 5 generations has a specific character with a name, with their own story and everything in the manga, which is the only time we get to really see it, because other than that, we're controlling them, we're making the decisions. We don't really get to see them interact. We're only seeing other people interact to us, you know? So, seeing that in a game would be mind-blowing and amazing. I mean, there's so much they could do with it. If we got voice acting for the game, it would be... I would buy that game instantly. I don't care how much it would be. I would buy it. Not only would it be a really great idea, because there's a lot of people who just don't know that there's Pokemon manga out there, and I have friends who have never heard of Pokemon Adventures, but have played and loved Pokemon for a long time now. So it's really upsetting, because Pokemon Adventures has some of the best storytelling I've ever seen. It's still a kids thing, but they use way more serious outlets. They can still tell a very compelling story for an older audience, even if it's Pokemon. It's a lot more real world, brutal. There's more connection with everything that's going on. It makes you actually think about like what's going on, and like, oh, this and this is happening, and this happened because of this. Gold and Silver has some of the best of that in it. So mainly wanting the Johto games to get more representation, a better representation. I don't think Heart Gold would ever be topped, because the way Pokemon is nowadays, they kind of mess up a lot of stuff. But having a Pokemon adventure, I wouldn't say open world, but a bigger world, kind of like Legends Arceus, where you can roam around, there's parts you can get to, but not open world. I still want a restricted world, but I want exploration to be a thing. Like Breath of the Wild. It's open world, but there is a set path. Kind of. It's really hard to explain, but I just want a bigger area. Like, you know how in the old Pokemon games you could only go on the paths that were made for you? There's so much forest, lake, mountain, just stuff between towns that you just never get to go through. That would be cool, because there are certain parts in the manga where it's like a whole new area because they went off the path. And the paths between towns are a lot bigger in the manga and anime. There's more areas. I would love to see that for the older games, because the older games are super small and condensed, and they would get treated so well with this treatment. I don't really know what else to say for this segment, but I'm just going to go cut to the next one. But mainly just, I'm going to go to the next section. This is going to be about the gameplay and how it would really work. So we'll go there. For the last part, I would like to say, for like the combat and everything, kind of like Scarlet and Violet, not much would really have to change. I like how Scarlet and Violet works. So basically Scarlet and Violet's open world, but just a little more restricted with how the regions used to work in the past games. But let's have Pokemon Adventures Gold and Silver in game form as a remaster of the Johto games, instead of remastering Gold and Silver, the game originals. You could do voice acting, you could make the characters special, you can make the protagonist actually have a story. There's so much you could do with it. Now, I know it would probably be hard for Nintendo, but I really think this would be a breath of fresh air, not only because we're seeing new characters, not really new, we're seeing old characters breathed in through different light, and I just think it would just really show a side of Pokemon not a lot of people know about, and I think it would be a really successful game, honestly. And like me, a lot of people's favorite games are the earlier games like Heart Gold. A lot of people love Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Me included, it's a lot of people's favorite games. There's so much you could do with it, but I don't know. There's not much else to say. I'm not going to explain the manga because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it yet. But if you have read the manga, you would understand how big of a game this would be and how awesome it would be to see it in game form. So, there's my petition. Pokemon Adventures Gold and Silver. Maybe for DLC, they could do Pokemon Adventures Red and Blue, the story before. But I think Gold and Silver should get treated like this. Instead of getting a remake of just the normal game, we should get a completely made up, from the ground up game that's new, fresh, and really interesting. So, if you guys have any ideas or comments, put them down below. I'm gonna go chill. New videos will be up next week. I'm on vacation right now, so I will be working on some videos for you guys. Next video to go up is going to be talking about the Cinderace raid and how that went for me. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm going to be talking about that. But yeah, I might make a part 2 to this explaining other stuff, but I don't want to make it too long, so we'll leave it at that. General basis, Pokemon Adventure Gold and Silver. For the new, I would consider it a side game, but specifically, make it one game like Legends Arceus, Pokemon Adventures. You don't even have to put Gold and Silver in there. Just make the logo out of Gold and Silver coloring. Call it Pokemon Adventures. Make it so you can complete the Pokédex with one game like Arceus. I would like to see the aggro, or the strong and agile styles added back to the moves like Arceus, and I would like to see the sneaking around and catching Pokemon like in Arceus, but I don't know how they would implement that. It wouldn't be hard, because in the manga, that's how they catch a couple Pokemon, is by sneaking up and tricking them and catching them on surprise, and they treat them more like animals in the manga, which is why I would think Arceus' style would work so well for adventures. But I might get into it in another video, but this is that. This is now. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.